So even when he's not doing highbrow horror, Robert Eggers manages to keep the insanity in his films. And I'm going to give you my thoughts and reactions to his new film, The Northman, right after the jump. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, ring that bell below, leave a comment. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. Robert Eggers needs a hug. No, he has done two horror films, which have gotten great acclaim, but are very stylized and highbrow and super artistic. His visual style is one of those that whenever he's dropping something, I want to see it. And those were The Witch and The Lighthouse. They're films that are breathtaking to watch. You may not go back through them again, but they are, when you watch them, it's like watching a painting, and into the mind of a very specific and twisted gentleman. He manages to keep that same sort of macabre and twisted style here with The Northman, um, but it's a little bit more straightforward. One, it's not a horror movie. It's a lot more accessible, this one. This is a big Viking historical epic drama about a young man played by Alexander Skarsgård who watches his father be killed in front of him. And he goes on this revenge tale to get vengeance for his father, his mother, and his entire bloodline. And so he breaks it up in almost into chapters where you sort of go along with. You're seeing piece by piece, and it is violent, it is beautiful, it is gorgeous, and it is super well shot. They attempt twists that, for me, probably because I've been doing this so long, I can see a mile away. Like it's very on the nose, but I don't think those twists were hidden with the purpose of that being the button and you not enjoying the film, whether or not you figure out the twist. I think that this film is good whether or not you figure that twist out, and your enjoyment goes on following Almith all the way through, whether he's high or low or whatever he's feeling in relation to that twist on both sides of it. The big issue with this film, it's gorgeous. I never got bored. This is one of the few times where, because it is so straightforward, it's more linear than anything I think he's done so far. Robert Eggers has done so far. Is very like, oh, all right, this is a pretty good one-to-one. Now you're still going to get some of the dream sequences because you're having with Valhalla and Valkyrie and all that stuff. That stuff's still here. That's when Eggers to go into his full uh, repertoire and bag of tricks of being visually stunning. He's got some great use of grayscale, but popping with colors of lava and all of that stuff. The final battle in this is just stunning to look at. There's a tracking shot, what people like to call a one take, but it's probably some cuts in there so far. But there's a battle sequence that starts at the beginning of the battle and kind of goes all the way through to a final, like a button that kind of is amazing to see. It's genius filmmaking and film work directing at its best. The problem is that I have is that the storyline is very basic. It's essentially The Lion King, and when you break it down as brass tacks as that, you're kind of like, oh, this story has been done before. Um, it's still gorgeous. It's still a fantastic movie. It is still beautiful to watch. But at the end of the day, kind of like, this basic story is a one-to-one. I get what we're doing here. It's just we've repurposed this and made this a big Viking epic as opposed to a cartoon with lions singing. Skarsgård is the meat and potatoes of this movie. It doesn't work without him looking as jacked as he does and as menacing and as hurt as he does. There's some great moments that he has. Nicole Kidman is great as his mom. Anya Taylor is really good as Olga. I will say that because of all the action and violence, and that is sort of the impetus of the story, the revenge, the Lion King-esque of it all. Sort of like with Lion King, where the relationship between Simba and Nala, or in this case, Almond and Olga, don't feel as earned as the payoff that it receives in the film. It feels like, oh yeah, there's a woman here, he's here. They sort of become tight knit because of the circumstances, and not necessarily tight knit because I believe the two of them belong together. They're two gorgeous looking people, so yeah, of course, Ken and Barbie get together, but the why as to they get together doesn't quite feel as earned here as I think it is intended to. That said, even with this being the most straightforward and accessible of Robert Eggers films, I still think there's going to be a lot of audiences that don't check this one out or will tune out. Even as I was leaving the theater, people were saying they were bored, which I never got bored for. But I can see that this is one of those movies like The Witch and like Lighthouse where the critic rating is going to be super high because they're all into the artistic style. They're looking at the camera angles, the visuals, all of that stuff. The story it tells. But they're not really taking into the part that it may not be fun for a lot of people, or for me it is. I love these big swashing tales, but I can definitely see how there's an audience that may not react to this, and because it's not even horror, or how they just like I tune out if they're not into that historical epic stuff. This isn't going to be for them, even less so than those. So while it is this most straightforward, there's going to be the entryway into this film could be difficult for some. All in all, I enjoyed it. I still have probably The Lighthouse being his best body of work because it's just weird and out there, but he manages, as accessible and as straightforward as this is, it manages to still put some of that mythology that he always likes to throw into all of his films in there, and comes out with this pretty solid Viking tale that I think, as it goes along, will get a lot of acclaim here and there, but I don't know if the general audiences are going to flock to this. Much in the way that they didn't really flock to The Lighthouse versus The Witch, which was more. The Witch was more horror. Lighthouse was more psychological horror. I think that's where that sort of stands. So for me, on that scale of play it again, Sam, once is enough. I didn't mind that. Or give me a time stone so I never have to think about this film again. This is a once is enough. And that's not any knock on this film. I don't think any of Robert Eggers' films really lean towards repeat viewing. I think they are all things that those movies we all have them. Those movies that you will purchase and you will own and be like, I love this movie. This movie is great, but never actually go back to rewatch because it's just too hard. This isn't too hard, but it's just like not entertaining. That's not the word. The road to go back down through it when you know everything and you've seen everything is not as fascinating as it was the first time you watch it. So while you would watch it if someone else had not seen it, you may not join it yourself. I think the Requiem for a Dream or the Passion of the Christ are films that I think are really well done, but I just don't have a reason to go back down that. These I do, but it's more like art that I would put on the wall and be like, hey, these are really great films. Would you like to watch this? And if not, cool, we don't have to. We can go watch the general fare. But if you all want to go down this road with me, I have these and we can watch them. That's sort of where this fits in. But what did you guys think about the film? Have you seen The Northman? Go ahead and leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up with email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name that's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that plays podcasts. We're there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.